Today, we're going to talk about the fact that corporations want women to be childless. And we'll talk about a lot of these initiatives and so-called benefits that corporations offer to women in the name of empowerment and compassion and women's rights. Like they just want women to have no children. They want women to work for them indefinitely. The first thing we'll get into before that actually is a story of Indi Gregory, the 8-month-old baby who was sentenced to death by the United Kingdom. Hey everyone, welcome back. We're back with another episode of The Shift with Gina. Hope you guys have been having a really good week. Thanksgiving is in a week. We are coming up 1 week left until Thanksgiving, which is crazy. I, of course, love this season. I'm one of those basic girls that loves all things fall. So I'm excited about Thanksgiving. We're going to keep it pretty small this year. It's just going to be my family and my parents. Of course, we're going to cook for an army. We always do that. Even if it's a small Thanksgiving, we always cook enough food to feed like 4 families. So might get together with some friends the couple of days and weekend after Thanksgiving. So I hope you guys have a really nice holiday too, because I think it's one of the best holidays of the year. Thanksgiving is fun because you don't have to worry about gifts. You don't have to worry about getting the right gifts for people or getting the right gifts for kids. You just get to come together and eat a lot of really good food that you don't normally eat the rest of the year. I've got this new pie recipe that I'm going to try. It's from the Great British Baking Show cookbook, which I know is a little bit unorthodox because it's not from an American cookbook. But there's something about British desserts, British baking that always just comes out better. Every time I bake from a British cookbook, I get way more compliments on how good the recipe is. So we're going to try out this new pie recipe for Thanksgiving this year. So before we get started today, there's a couple of things I want to get into. But first, don't forget, if you're a woman listening and you want to join The Shift, my women's online health and fitness group, you can click the link in the description. You don't need a Facebook to sign up. I know a lot of people ask if you need a Facebook login. Like if the group is hosted on Facebook, it's not. It's hosted on Mighty Networks. So you don't need a Facebook page at all to sign up for it. We do weekly workouts together every week. We're currently in the middle of a morning routine challenge. So I'm helping you guys shape your morning habits before your day gets started. You don't need like a full hour or more to get a good morning routine. It just takes something as small as 5 to 10 minutes. So we have that challenge going on right now. We always have a challenge going on, and there's always a winner who is picked from the challenge who gets a cool prize. I also have a lot of exclusive content over there. I get to interview some holistic practitioners, doctors that have been and would be censored and silenced and banned on social media if I tried to put the interviews online. So all of that is in The Shift as well. And I do a lot of exclusive content solo with myself. I talk about motherhood and things going on in my personal life that I don't talk about online with the crazy trolls who are always out to get people. So click the link in the description to join The Shift. We've got some really fun stuff coming up in the new year as well. We have a challenge in January that I think is going to be great. We're going to call it the 2024 Reset. So if you're a guy listening, you can recommend the group to any woman in your life, girlfriend, wife, sister, mom. I have a wide variety of ages and demographics in that group, so join us. Okay, so here we go. Indi Gregory. This story is one of the most horrifying stories I think I have heard in years online. I don't think I've heard a story this horrifying in a really long time. So this all happened in the UK, right? So there are these parents of a girl named Indi Gregory. She was 8 months old. She was suffering from a rare degenerative mitochondrial disease. Now, this is a disease, like I said, it's rare, but there are children who have lived for years with this disease. She was on life support because she needed life support to breathe and to stay alive. But she was responsive to her parents. She seemed to be in good spirits. She was responsive to their touch, and she was still conscious. She was still there. She was with her family. And a British appellate court decided to rule that this child should be taken off of life support. Okay. She was receiving life-sustaining treatment on a ventilator at the Queen's Medical Center in Nottingham, England. But because doctors had given up hope that she would survive, it turned into a legal fight between Indi's family and the court system. So the court claimed that there was not a chance for Indi to live. So they determined that the doctors should pull her off of life support regardless of the parental consent. A judge previously ruled that it was in the child's best interests to be taken off life support. Indi's parents appealed the ruling, but the UK Court of Appeal dismissed their challenge in a remote hearing. The Justice, Lord Justice Peter Jackson, he delivered the ruling. He said, "The grounds of appeal are entirely without merit. Although this is a legal decision, it is taken with a full awareness of the deeply sensitive question that lies at the heart of the proceedings." Now, in the midst of all this, Italy offered a helping hand. The Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, she made an announcement. She said, "We will take care of Indi. We will pay for her care so that the financial burden is not on the UK taxpayer." Because remember, in the UK, it is universal healthcare, state-sanctioned healthcare. So all of the healthcare that is administered in the UK is on the taxpayer dollar. So she said, bring the baby to Italy. We'll even give her a passport so there won't be any issues with her crossing country lines. They even found a hospital in Rome that was willing to perform the procedure that her parents needed to be performed on Indi. The doctors in the UK were not advised, but they were told, they were instructed not to perform this procedure on Indi. But the country of Italy and this hospital in Rome offered to perform the surgery. And they said that we can do our best to help her, to help extend her life. Again, they offered to pay for the surgery. They offered to pay for it. So nothing would be on the taxpayers of the UK. The judges said that Italy's desire to bring the little girl there for treatment under Hague Convention rules was wholly misconceived and not in the spirit of the convention. So I don't know what this Hague Convention is. Let's see if we can look it up really quick. The Hague Convention establishes international standards for practices for intercountry adoptions. It's a treaty that many countries, including the United States, have joined. Okay, so the judge said that Italy's offer was not in the spirit of this convention, whatever that means. Jackson, the judge who delivered this ruling, said the stay has now expired and Indi's life support will be removed this past Saturday in a hospice setting. Of course, Indi's father, Dean Gregory, condemned the ruling. He said, "Claire and I are again disgusted by another one-sided decision from the judges and the trust. The whole world is watching and is shocked at how we have been treated. Claire and I have always wanted what is in Indi's best interests. She has human rights and we wanted her to have the best treatment possible. If the UK did not want to fund it, why can she not go to Italy and receive the treatment and care which the amazing Italian Prime Minister and government has offered? This feels like the latest kick in the teeth, and we will not give up fighting for our daughter's chance to live until the end." There were a lot of pro-life groups that came out in support of the Gregory family. The pro-life legal group called Christian Concern represented the Gregory family, and they also condemned the ruling. There were a lot of these groups that held out hope for Indi. They kept trying to appeal. Giorgia Meloni urgently wrote to the UK's Lord Chancellor, calling for the two countries to officially collaborate on facilitating Indi's transfer to Rome under the Hague Convention. It was still denied. Sadly, Indi Gregory's life support was removed and she was killed. She died. This is just so evil. There are no words. There are no words. This is one of the most horrific stories I've ever heard. This is murder. This is murder, the intentional killing of an innocent life. In a statement released by Indi Gregory's father, Dean, he said, "Indi's life ended at 1:45 a.m. Claire and I are angry, heartbroken, and ashamed. The NHS and the courts not only took away her chance to live a longer life, but they also took away Indi's dignity to pass away in the family home where she belonged. They did succeed in taking Indi's body and dignity, but they can never take her soul. They tried to get rid of Indi without anybody knowing, but we made sure she would be remembered forever. I knew she was special from the day she was born. Claire held her for her final breaths." I mean, just horrifying. Can you imagine as a parent? This is your absolute worst nightmare. You are totally helpless. And this is not one of those situations like, as a parent hearing this, the first thing you think of is like, okay, what could I have done? Could I essentially like kidnap my own child from the hospital? Like I would take her to Italy myself. But you have to understand this child is on life support. So it's not like they could just take her away from the hospital themselves and bring her to Italy themselves. She needed the medical care to be transferred from one place to the other. And that is what Italy and the hospital in Rome offered. Meloni offered that. And it still wasn't enough for the UK government. So little Indi Gregory died, 8 months old. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even, sometimes the pictures are just too difficult to look at because you look at it as a parent and you're like, it truly is. It is the dreams that you have at night that terrify you, being totally helpless and not able to save your own child's life. This whole story, if you have any friends who claim to support universal health care. They want, quote, free health care. For those of you who are listening, I'm doing free in scare quotes because there's no such thing as free health care. If you have anybody in your life, a friend, a family member, who still thinks that universal health care is a good idea, please send them this story. This is not the first time that the UK has sentenced innocent children to death. There are several stories like this that gained a lot of notoriety over the last several years because remember, when you have state-sanctioned healthcare, your healthcare is paid for by the government, and anything that comes out of the government is controlled by the government. So if you have the government paying for your healthcare, paying for your education, God forbid, paying for your food, that means the government controls your healthcare, your education, and your food, and they can do whatever they want with it because it is their money. And we all know how fair and efficient the government is, right? Yeah, so efficient. And this is what happens when you surrender control of your personal healthcare and your child's healthcare over to the government. This is what happens. It ends up being a legal battle between the government courts and your family. Remember, is run by the government. It's on the taxpayer's dollar. It all has to come down to what's best for the taxpayer. It's not about what's best for the patient. It really is, well, what's best for the taxpayer's dollar? That is in the primary, that's like the primary concern of hospitals and the government and the NHS when it comes to healthcare. Who knows? Who knows how long Indi could have lived? The point is, that's not the point. Maybe she would have tragically passed away within months of this procedure. Who knows? Maybe she would have lived for years and would have been able to enjoy life with her parents and her family. Who knows? That's not the point. The point is that every single person has the right to life and deserves the right to fight for their life. And that's why this is just so terrifying. I mean, I totally agree that the American healthcare system is broken. I mean, I talk about it all the time. How much do I talk about how broken the healthcare system is? It is. The conventional medical system here is totally broken. However, thank God we don't have to worry about things like this because our healthcare is not state sanctioned. This is a really big difference. This is not a trivial thing. When the state controls your healthcare, it's in control of your life. It's in control of your children's lives. So please send this story to anyone who might still be in support of universal healthcare because this is just absolutely horrific. And the only thing that I can take solace in is every single judge, doctor, attorney who was behind this decision to sentence this child to death and murder her. Every single one of them will face just judgment one day. I know that for a fact. Probably not going to be in this lifetime, but certainly in the next lifetime. And I take solace in that fact because these people are absolutely evil. It's just awful. So please pray for the Gregory family. Please pray for their peace and their comfort during this terrible time. I don't know if there can be any good that comes from the story. I don't know if there's going to be enough awareness raised so that we can stop something like this from happening in the future. When I announced this story on my Instagram, there was someone from the UK that was like, yeah, our state-sanctioned healthcare is bad too, but you guys have the same exact thing over there. There are now kids, there are now parents who are like losing their kids to the gender theory stuff, and they have to get their hormone blockers and all that stuff. And so it's the same thing happening there. And I'm like, no, it's not. You don't understand that in the United States, there are only a few states, because of federalism, there are only a few states that don't believe in the idea of parental rights and parental consent. So there are certainly some states like the state of California or New York where they have this legislation instituted that would essentially allow children or teenagers to somehow get these treatments without their parental consent. And it would protect the child and the school system they attend from the parents ever knowing what the child is actually having done. But the great thing about federalism is that every single state has its own laws, has its own state constitution. If you don't want to live in a state like California that doesn't believe in parental rights, you have every freedom to move to a different state. So it's not comparable. You can't say that, oh, well, just because, the US is not far behind, it's the same thing. You've got kids over there who are being forced to take hormone blockers. It's not quite the same. Of course, it's a problem here. In some states, it's certainly a problem, but it's not comparable. State-sanctioned healthcare is no good for anybody. It really isn't. So we have to stop this this trend that young people think it's such a great idea when the reality is things like this happen. Okay, let's shift now to this other topic I wanted to talk about today. Corporations want women to be childless. Have you ever noticed that? This is the reason why it's so concerning. You probably heard this projection that was given to us earlier this year. Morgan Stanley predicted that 45% of women between the ages of 25 and 44 will be single and childless by 2030. That's one of the reasons is because the number of prime working age women in the US has been increasing steadily, and most of these women are single and completely focused on their career. Now, these women are a great asset to our economy. At least that's what economists want us to believe, because single, childless women who are focused mostly on their professional career, they contribute more to the economy in terms of spending money in retail, spending money on travel, spending money on dining out, on nightlife, on skincare and beauty products. So, there's a lot of economists that say it's a good thing for women to be single and childless because it's good for the economy. Right? And so when Morgan Stanley released this projection earlier this year, there was a lot of buzz about this. That's why I'm saying you probably heard about it before. They said that the number of single women in the US is expected to increase 1.2% every year from 2018 to 2030, compared to a 0.8 increase for the overall population. This is so when 45% of women are childless between 25 and 44 by 2030, this will be an increase from 41% of women in that age group being single and childless in 2018. Of course, economists will attempt to frame this in a positive light because nearly half of women are single and childless. That means that nearly half of women are going to be spending more money on going out and traveling and buying things and buying clothes. It'll be so good for the economy. Okay, so why don't we also consider the negative impact this is going to have? Even from an individual standpoint, okay, we already know so much research has proven this to us time and time again, that single childless women very generally tend to be much more unhappy, much unhealthier, especially mentally in terms of mental health, and much lonelier and much less fulfilled than women who have a husband and children. This is just statistically true. This has been proven through many different types of studies and research. But even furthermore than that, this is about more than a woman's happiness. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but this is bigger than a woman's happiness. This is about the bedrock of any healthy society. What is the bedrock of any healthy society? It's not money. It's not buying things. It's not consumerism. It's the family. It's the family unit. It's always been that way. A strong society cannot function without the strong foundation of the family. And the stronger a family unit is, the more resistant that family is, and the more resistant individuals are to government tyranny, the more resistant they are to being brainwashed, to being programmed with evil ideologies, the more moral people are, usually when they're from families, strong families. So it's sad to think that we're going to see fewer and fewer families in the future, because this means that there will be fewer children and fewer happily married couples. So this should be concerning for all of us. Again, it's not only about women's happiness, although of course we want women to be happy. Of course we want women to feel fulfilled and content with their life, but it's even bigger than that. It's about what kind of future do we want for our country? And what we've seen happen over the last several decades, we've seen modern feminism just take a huge control of our society. We have seen the T word, I'm not allowed to say the word, but you know what I'm talking about, and that whole community take over our society. We've seen critical race theory take over the school system, an anti-white bias taking over the system. And all of these evil ideologies are one of the main reasons they are so successful at taking over young people in particular, is because we have weaker families than ever in this country. The family unit is breaking down left and right. More women than ever are single moms. And we already know statistically that kids who grow up in a home without a father are much, much more likely to do drugs, to not graduate from high school, to commit a crime, go to prison, live in poverty, be homeless, get pregnant as a teen. There's so many things. And you know who was one of the first people to say that publicly? Barack Obama himself. You can look it up. He made a whole speech. I think it was probably 2009 or something, where he talked about the importance of fathers in the home. And of course, that was like erased from the internet, but you can probably find some old video of it somewhere because now it's considered offensive. But we've always known this to be true. So not only are we seeing broken families, the number of single motherhood increasing every year, but we're now also preparing for half of women in their childbearing years to be childless. So we're going to have fewer families. We're already below birth replacement rate, which is not a good thing, because when you think about what's going to happen about the retirement age, people aren't going to be able to retire until they're like 75 or 80. It's not good for our society to have weaker families and to have fewer families. The fact that we're seeing these numbers increase is incredibly concerning, but it's even more concerning because you see corporations and all of these big companies promote the idea of women being childless. And they do it in these very sneaky ways of offering benefits and programs that are meant to empower women and help them choose the right path for themselves and be successful and climb the corporate ladder and break the glass ceiling. So let's look at some of these initiatives, shall we? One of the things that is really, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny, is that whenever Roe versus Wade was overturned last year, I think, what was it, May, June of 2022, there were a ton of corporations that came out and announced that they were expanding their, quote, healthcare benefits for women in need of abortion. What does that mean? So you may remember that Starbucks made a really big announcement last year. This was just one of the many companies who did this. But on June 24th, 2022, Starbucks released a letter from, I think it was Sarah Kelly, Partner Resources, whatever it was. This is what the letter says. Listen to this. Quote, "We all need to process the overturning of Roe versus Wade in our own way. And as you do, here's what I want you to know. No matter where you live or what you believe, we will always ensure you have access to quality health care. And when legislative actions impact your access to health care, we will work on ways to make you feel supported." Oh, really? Feel supported? By what? Encouraging you to kill your unborn child? And that's exactly what Starbucks is doing here. So that's why Starbucks has provided partners enrolled in a healthcare plan a medical travel reimbursement benefit to access an abortion, and coming soon, access to gender affirming care. Oh, okay. So what does that mean? Let me tell you what that means. Companies like Amazon, for example, Amazon began offering up to $4,000 in travel expenses annually for medical treatments that included elective abortion if a provider wasn't available within 100 miles of the employee's home. Airbnb, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, all these companies also offer travel coverage for female employees who decided to get an abortion that was, likely out of state. Isn't that so lovely? Here are some other companies: Meta, Instagram and Facebook, Disney, Netflix, TikTok, Microsoft, Google, of course, BuzzFeed. Here's some clothing retail stores that offered these travel reimbursements. So they're essentially like paying for a woman to go out of state and get an abortion. Abercrombie & Fitch, Lululemon, Nike, Adidas, Levi, Everlane, Dick's Sporting Goods, Patagonia, H&M, Glossier, MasterCard, PayPal, Citigroup, Tesla, Uber, Lyft, Kroger, Target, Impossible Foods, my gosh, even Zillow. So all these companies are now encouraging their female employees to go across state. You get that abortion, girl, and we'll pay for it because you deserve a right to health care, even though the two are not related. I'm sure I'll get the disclaimer on the bottom of my video. You can see it there because they did it to my last video. They said abortion is a healthcare, a healthcare something provided by a provider. It's a form of healthcare. Yeah, okay. You can keep saying that until you're blue in the face. It doesn't make it true. It's like saying, oh, if your car is red, my car is blue, my car is blue. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you say it's blue, the car is red. Or if you keep saying the sky is red, it doesn't matter, the sky is blue. You can say as much as you want that abortion is healthcare. It doesn't make it true. So you have all these companies now that are paying for their female employees to go get abortions because they don't want you to have kids. Did you know that? These companies don't want you to have kids. That's why they're making it so easy for you to get abortions. And now let's look into how easy they're making it for you to freeze your eggs. Because not only do they not want you to have kids at all, but if you do want to have kids, we're going to be really nice and help you delay it for as long as possible. Just delay it. Don't think about having kids now. You can wait until you're 35 or 37 or 39 or 40 or 45 because did you see Gordon Ramsay's wife just had her sixth kid when she was 49 years old? So you can wait as long as you want. Companies that are offering help to their female employees to freeze their eggs. In 2014, Apple proudly stated that they are now offering egg freezing to their companies. They even covered the cost of the procedure up to $20,000, and they call it their fertility benefit program. Facebook offers the same. Google, Spotify even followed suit in 2019, and they now cover $10,000 in egg freezing costs per employee. Starbucks, Walmart, Vanguard, Microsoft, and many others offer similar benefits. In fact, now more than 1 out of every 10 companies offer to cover the procedure of egg freezing now. So one study found that 90% of women thought that egg freezing would be successful for women over the age of 30 and result in them having children. That's a lot of women. So basically, almost all women think that egg freezing is just a successful thing. They really just think that they retrieve an egg, they put it in the freezer, and whenever you're ready, you just go and you just, make a baby. But a 15-year study found that only 39% of women ended up with live births after egg freezing. That's a pretty low percentage compared to the 90% of women who thought that it would just be successful for women over the age of 30. And it's really impossible to say with confidence how successful or how unsuccessful egg freezing actually is overall, because of course it depends on the woman and the age and all that. But more and more women are coming to understand that egg freezing is not the miracle procedure that women believe it is to be. In fact, there are more and more stories coming out of women who completely delayed having children because they were so devoted to their careers and because their companies paid for them to freeze their eggs. And they were given all these benefits to delay motherhood as much as possible. And they get to 35, 37, 39, and they try to retrieve their frozen eggs. They try to have babies, and they end up flying through all of their eggs that are frozen, and none of it works. None of them are viable. And now these are horror stories that a lot of women are experiencing now. Why are all these companies going above and beyond to support their female employees to go through with it? You know why? Because they don't want you to have kids. Corporations don't want you to have babies. Look, don't get me wrong. I know that these companies provide maternity leave. I know that. I mean, I have a friend who works at Airbnb, and her maternity leave was pretty luxurious. It was pretty nice. And I know people from the days that we lived in San Francisco. I know girls who work at some major companies, tech companies there. And, one of them had like a 24-week maternity leave, which is pretty long compared to most other companies. So yeah, they offer maternity leave, but why don't we see any of these companies publicly announcing their luxurious maternity leave online? Apple, Microsoft, Spotify, Starbucks, they make all of these grand gestures publicly on social media. They do press releases. They release statements to talk about how they're going to cover your abortion. They're going to cover your egg freezing. They're going to do everything they can to help you delay or deny motherhood altogether. But when do these companies ever make announcements that they're going to help you have children and still work and have a career? You know why? Because they don't care about that. That's not a priority for them at all. That's why they don't promote it. They could not care less if you're going to be a mom or not. What they want you to do is just continue working and being a slave to the corporate ladder, sleeping with your phone under your pillow, ruining your hormones, never getting enough sleep, answering to your male boss and being his slave and answering his every call. But God forbid you have a husband and serve him in your family. It makes me nauseous because I see so many women who are so unhealthy in the 9-to-5 corporate grind. We talked about that a lot in 2 episodes ago, right? And then it's even worse because these companies are pretending like they care about women. All of these initiatives are meant to be, quote, compassionate, empowering for women, help women plan their family. They call it family planning. Family plan. Go kill your baby across in a different state. We'll call it family planning in healthcare. But they don't actually care at all. about women, women's health, and definitely not about family and children. And this is one of the reasons why we have such a sick culture that has family values on the decline. It's very significantly family values are on the decline, and it's a scary thing. If you're a woman and you work at a corporation right now, I'm not saying that you should like quit tomorrow. Okay, that's not what we're saying. I understand that we live in the modern world where single women have to make a living, just like I talked about 2 episodes ago. I know that. Everyone knows that. No one here is saying that all single women should just quit their job right away. What I'm saying is that you have to be able to balance your career as a single woman while also making time to take care of your health so that you have good fertility, and to also prioritize finding a husband if you want to have children. If you know that somewhere down the line you want to have children, even if you're like 23 years old, let's say you just got out of college, you're early to mid 20s, and you know you want to have kids one day, let me tell you something. Don't try to delay it as much as possible, because it's probably going to take you a few years, maybe even more, to find the right guy. And you want to make sure you marry the right guy. It's not a decision that should be taken lightly. It's not a decision that should be rushed into. You want to make sure you find the right guy. So let's say you find the right guy, you're 27 years old. Then you're probably going to date for a year or 2 to make sure that, you know, you're right for each other, families align, values align. And then you probably get married, 29? And then you want to have maybe 6 months to a year together before you have kids. Maybe you want to start even sooner. So you're probably going to start having kids at 30. So if you're like 23 and 24, and if you're not thinking about family right now, you're going to turn 27 and it's going to feel like it's almost too late, because it's going to take you quite a while to find a good guy. So nobody's saying that women should quit their job right away, but there is a way to choose a kind of career that's not a soul-sucking corporate ladder. And there's also a way to prioritize your health and finding a husband over climbing the corporate ladder, and make sure that you have good fertility. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I see a lot of girls now who are choosing, quote, careers. I mean, it's not really a career, but choosing jobs like nannying. You can nanny for like a really rich family, basically full time. And you get to sharpen your maternal skills, homemaking skills, and you don't have to be in that like toxic masculine 9-to-5 grind all the time. And you still have the time to take care of yourself and to maybe meet somebody. So there are a lot of different options out there. I don't think women understand that there are options. You don't have to just quit right away, but it is a good idea to think about what you really want your future to look like. And the last thing that you want, trust me, is to turn 35 and realize that you have maybe like an egg frozen somewhere, but you don't have a husband, because you've been so committed to breaking the glass ceiling. We don't want you to end up there, not only for your own happiness, but for the sake of society and for the sake of your future children. So that's all I've got today, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the episode if you like it. Share the episode if you don't like it. We're going to be back soon. I'll probably film one more time before Thanksgiving, maybe even twice more before Thanksgiving. So we'll see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.